The warm afternoon sun cast long shadows across the bustling open market. Vendors called out, waving vegetables and spices under the noses of potential customers. Amidst the liveliness, Tammy's heart raced as she stormed toward the fabric stall where Lacan stacked folded Ankara prints. His wide smile faltered as soon as he saw her determined glare. "Tammy, what is the matter?" Lacan asked, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "You tell me, Lacan," she retorted, drawing closer. Her voice was low but laced with a sharp edge. "Lacan, your son," Tammy continued, her voice steady but tingling with an emotion Lacan couldn't quite place. "He called me Daddy. Do you think that's something normal? In fact, why am I even the one telling you?" People paused to glance at the brewing tension, eyes flitting between the two. Lacan's jaw tightened, the weight of the situation dawning on him. That is not possible." His voice faltered, disbelief struggling against rising panic. Tammy folded her arms, shifting her weight to one foot. "You should come to my place this evening. We have to sort this out privately." Lekin's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts as he made his way through the narrow alleys back to his neighborhood. The familiar sounds of children playing and the scent of frying plantains did little to ease his brewing suspicion. Could it be true? How had things reached this point without him realizing? He clenched his fists in frustration, anger blending with confusion. Deep inside, something whispered that his life was going to change forever, and not for the better. The sun dipped lower in the sky as Lacan approached Temmy's house, an unassuming bungalow with a faded green door and bright bougainvillea flowers climbing its exterior walls. He paused, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. The sound of children's laughter reached his ears, followed by the sight of Temmy emerging from the doorway. Her expression was unreadable, a blend of determination and something else, something that Lacan couldn't quite name. "Let's talk inside," Temmy said, leading him through the narrow corridor into a modest living room. Inside, the room was filled with the scent of incense, the furniture simple but carefully arranged. Temmy gestured for him to sit down. Taking a deep breath, she began, her voice steady, though her eyes betrayed her turmoil. "Sade didn't want you to know," she said quietly, her gaze meeting his. "But this is not something we can keep under the rug any longer." Lacan's heart dropped. Sade, one of their colleagues at the market. His voice wavered. "What exactly are you saying?" Tammy hesitated before continuing, her words deliberate and heavy. "You might have more than just a professional relationship with Sade's family, Lacan." Lacan's mind whirled as he tried to comprehend the weight of this revelation. Betrayal, like a bitter taste, rose in his throat. As the evening shadows lengthened, Lacan sat in silence, absorbing the blow. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. Everything, his sense of self, trust, friendships, felt threatened, as if a delicate web had been violently ripped apart. "You should talk to Saad," Temmy suggested, her voice softening. "Find out the truth." He nodded stiffly, fighting to maintain his composure. "I will." Back in his small apartment, illuminated only by the dim glow of a single bulb, Lacan sat on the edge of his bed, staring at nothing. Images of the past months replayed in his mind, small details he had overlooked now burdened with significance. He had to confront Sade, but the thought of it filled him with dread. How could he face her without letting his anger take over? How could he understand something that felt so impossible? Unable to sleep, Lacan rose and paced, his movements tense and restless. This was a betrayal he couldn't ignore, a wrong that demanded justice. Plans formed in the back of his mind, ideas of how to confront the situation, or perhaps even to find a way to regain control over his uprooted life. A message from his father's wise words long ago echoed in his mind. "When the path is unclear, tread carefully. Don't burn bridges you may need tomorrow." It was hard advice to heed when the pain felt so raw. As dawn broke, bringing a fragile light to his troubled mind, Lacan dressed and prepared to face the day. He couldn't let this matter fester. The market would be buzzing shortly, alive with the day's trade, but today it felt like the backdrop to a battleground. The question of keeping his head, of finding a way through this without losing everything, friends, respect, peace of mind, hung over him like the weight of an approaching storm. Lacan stepped out, the morning air brisk against his skin. He found Sade at her usual spot in the market, her expression betraying nothing of the tumultuous conversation that awaited. He drew in a breath, made his way over, and prepared to uncover the truth that might change everything. But just as he was about to speak, a small voice called out, tugging at his sleeve. He looked down to see the same child, eyes bright and full of innocence, the same one who somehow now seemed tangled up in the mystery. Scene 10. Shocking revelation. The child's voice, full of awe and wonder, broke the spell of silence hanging over them. "Daddy?" he said again, the words sharp as glass, and Lacan's heart plunged. Saad, her face suddenly going pale, turned to face them both. Unauthorized emotions danced across her eyes, a torrent of guilt, fear, and unfinished sentences. The market noise faded into the background, and for a moment it was just them, locked in an unexpected moment of truth. Lacan stood frozen, realization dawning like the first light of a storm breaking. The child's innocent word hung in the air, as if the market itself held its breath. Lacan's world teetered on the brink of collapse. Sade's expression moved through fear, defensiveness, and finally resignation. Her eyes darted between Lacan and the child, unable to muster words that could change the reality laid bare. Lacan's voice, when it finally emerged, was low and strained, barely audible above the ambient sounds of commerce. "Is it true, Sade? Is he my son?" The crowd around them subtly shifted, people pretending not to listen, yet ears keen for the unfolding drama. Saad sighed deeply and nodded, unable to meet his gaze. "Yes, Lacan, it's true." The confession struck like lightning, electrifying every nerve in his body. Lacan felt the urge to shout, to unravel the hurt in angry words, but his father's advice whispered again, "Don't burn bridges you may need tomorrow." Lacan's fists unclenched as the weight of revelation pressed down harder. He turned, unable to fully process the enormity of this betrayal. His head spun with memories, all the moments of camaraderie twisted by this newfound truth. Yet, the sight of the child, his child, stirred something unfamiliar within him. A connection, despite the chaos. Sade reached for him, her voice pleading but resigned. "I'm sorry, Lacan. I wanted to tell you, but it never seemed like the right time." "Was this easy for you?" Lacan asked, not bitter but deeply pained, his voice catching on the raw edge of hurt. The betrayal cut deep, yet an undercurrent of need for understanding tugged at him. The market went on around them, life acting as a backdrop to this deeply personal conflict. Lacan stood silent, mind racing with how to respond. Yet what overwhelmed him was not rage, but an unfamiliar tenderness. He looked at the child again, whose innocence spoke louder than any adult words. "If you both knew." "Why keep me out?" Lacan's voice softened as he addressed Saad, his anger tempered by the gravity of the truth and the implications going forward. Sade's answer was simple, the complex web of emotions etched into her face. "Fear, Lacan. I was afraid of how everything might change for all of us." Anger flickered, but didn't blaze. Instead, clarity crept in, of shared mistakes, of lives irreversibly intertwined. Lacan felt tears threatening, not from weakness, but the immense heartbreak overshadowed by an uncertain future. The question burning in his mind had a resolve, a path winding from bitterness to redemption, irrespective of the costs already endured. Unable to continue amid the market's watchful eyes, Lacan turned away. A block away, he stumbled into an empty corner, moments replaying vividly in his mind. The full force of betrayal clashing with a determined spark of responsibility stole his breath. The small voice of his mother's scriptures, often melded into his childhood, whispered. One distinct verse lingered. "For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you." Matthew 6:14. Lacan kneeled, silent tears mixing with prayer. The world fell away until only quiet resolve remained. In the depths of heartache, he felt a subtle presence, God, meeting him in brokenness, urging him towards mercy. Emerging from the shadowed corner, Lacan found himself wandering unconsciously to the church at the end of the street, its doors always open, sanctuary awaiting. Inside, the quiet was a balm. Reverend Adebola, inside attending to daily engagements, noticed Lacan's troubled expression. "Ah, my son, you look like you are carrying the world today. Can I help lighten the load?" The simple inquiry, filled with warmth and sincerity, struck a chord in Lacan's weary soul. He hesitated, words scarcely forming, but the Reverend's understanding eyes invited honesty. "I'm lost, Baba Adebola. Everything is upside down. I have a son, and I didn't know. And Sade, she knew," admitted Lacan, his voice threading between embarrassment and liberating truth. Reverend Adebola nodded gently, sensing the heavy tide of Lacan's revelation. "Sometimes, life gives us burdens unexpected. But have you considered the gift within this storm? A child, Lacan, is not a mistake." The Reverend's words were profound, so simple yet anchoring. Lacan felt conviction and ease washing over him, the pastoral advice given effortlessly, grounding his achy heart. "Ah, the hardest choices are often the right choices," Reverend Adebola continued, laying a guiding hand on Lacan's shoulder. "Start with honesty, first with yourself, then with others. Pain doesn't vanish, but with faith, hope finds roots." With the dawn of new clarity, Lacan made his way back to Sade, knowing the path he must tread was long, full of discussions, attempts at forgiveness, and the reality of lifelong responsibilities. He discovered Sade sitting alone, her eyes the image of remorse. Without rehearsal or fear, Lacan took a seat beside her, buoyed by hard-learned humility. "Sade, we need to begin anew, for his sake," he stated, gesturing towards where their child played, unfazed by adult complexities. "What now, Lacan?" Sade queried, hope tentatively layered beneath doubts. "We move forward, one step at a time," Lacan replied, the words earnest. "We can't change the past, but I won't walk away from the future. Perhaps as we heal, we become what was lost." Pain remained, consequences of actions still tangibly felt, but intermingled with, that was a fragile yet genuine hope. Lacan and Sade, bound by unexpected choices, faced the unfolding time with the knowledge that God guided, his redemption not an eraser of mistakes, but a light despite them. Reflecting on Reverend Adebola's words, Lacan turned the thought of forgiveness in his mind. It didn't eliminate the hurt, but invited the possibility of change, new beginnings born of unimaginable twists. As the sun settled, casting golden hues over the day's trials, Lacan felt a peace, fragile but deeply present. His heart, previously heavy with anger, now held surrender, recognizing God's hand amid uncertainties. Back at home, Lacan contemplated life's new path, where faith hadn't removed the jagged edges but offered salve through support, leading from brokenness into healing slowly, softly. He understood Christ didn't promise instant solace, but redemption felt within each trial, a tether of hope amidst the star-filled African night. And so, under the watchful eyes of those stars, Lacan prayed silently for continuous strength, just as prayers drifted upwards in homes around, faith timeless as the land itself. He understood now, pain endured, challenges met, wouldn't magically dissolve, but within its tapestry, woven in God's love, lay grace enough for today's journey.
Thank you so much for listening to this intriguing story. I hope it touched you or taught you something. For more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. And guys, if you'd like to see a part 2, or you have thoughts on what happened, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.